Good morning, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. Now, we are going to talk about this morning the whole war-torn world, the war-torn world in which we are living, right? We are living in a world that is surrounded, right? That is pervaded by crime and violence, right? People seem not to be able to live peacefully anymore with their neighbors. And we've got to speak out, right? We've got to talk about what is happening in the world, particularly in the West, in the Western world, that regarded itself as a civilized world in former times. But I'm here to say that we have morphed into an uncivilized world where we are actually behaving. We are literally, basically behaving as the animals in the Wild West, right? In the wild. That's how we're behaving, right? We're killing people right, left, and center. What really has happened to our humanity? Where has our humanity gone? And we tend to believe that because of the onslaught of this technological era, we think that we are civilized. We're using our cell phones and we're sending emails and we think we're so civilized, right? And we think we're living in modern houses and think that that is so. But when we look at the ordinary humanity, we see that something is missing, something is lacking, right? And we've got to really delve into the human psyche to see what is the missing ingredient. And something evidently is missing. This morning, we shall talk briefly about or continue to elaborate on the whole aspect of crime and violence as it is being unfolded in Jamaica, on the island of Jamaica. Now, we know that Jamaica has been having that problem for a long, long time. And I think that we need to also acknowledge, to confirm that we have been having an ongoing civil war from the 1970s, right? This is an ongoing civil war where we have been killing ourselves, right? Unabated, something that continues, and we have never really dealt with it. We have tried to kick the rug, you know, and under the table, and we try to hide as much as possible what the real realities are. Now, on Friday, or I think it was on Friday, today's what? Today's date is 28th, or yesterday, it was yesterday, right? The Jamaica Observer, on that is April 27th, today is April 28th. The Jamaica Observer has a piece here titled, Holdess Warns Loss of Promising Youth Awardee Gunned Down in Manchester. Now, let me show you the young man, right? Now, gone are the days when Manchester, and I spent a year at West Indies College, where it's now Northern Caribbean University, sometimes in the 1990s. And it, as far as I was concerned, Manchester was a very, very peaceful parish, right? Sometimes I thought that was bordering on boredom, right? Because you didn't see much going on there. But the fact of the matter, it was a lovely town, a middle-class town, and people were very, very hospitable and very friendly and nice. And here is a young man who I understand is or was now an entrepreneur, because he's now deceased because of the violence that has plagued Jamaica. Now, it says here Prime Minister Andrew Holness has joined the nation in mourning the tragic loss of C.J. Cunningham, a former recipient of the Prime Minister's National Youth Award for Agriculture and Agro-Processing. Cunningham, 29, was shot and killed in Davidton, Manchester, Friday evening, right? So this is what happened to him. In a statement from the Office of the Prime Minister, the OPM, Holness described Cunningham as a promising young entrepreneur and beloved member of the community of Chantilly District in Manchester. On behalf of the government and the people of Jamaica, I extend my heartfelt condolences to CJ's family, friends, and the entire community. Our thoughts and prayers are with you at this time, the statement said. It further noted that Cunningham's innovative approach to farming and his dedication to his community were evident in every aspect of his work. His passion for farming and entrepreneurship was recognized as he was the owner and chief executive officer of Fairwoods from J Farm. Sorry, so he had developed a company called officer of Fairwoods Farm, Jamaica. So I guess that was the name of his company, with a quarter-acre vegetable farm equipped with greenhouse technology. So here we have a very innovative entrepreneur who was doing farming, and he was into this agro-processing, agri-farming, right? But his life has been snuffed out. His life has been snuffed out. And the prime minister, all he does is just express his condolences. Because what else is there to do? What else is there to do in a government that is ineffective, right? A government that is dysfunctional and has been dysfunctional for a long, long time. But I guess in Jamaica, as it were, dysfunctionalities or dysfunctional governments are the norm. People love it because all they want is to get some food and that's it, right? To eat and to party. And that is all right, right? Because every little thing is gonna be all right, right? Baby, don't worry, right? Don't worry about a thing because every little thing is going to be all right. Once you have food in your bellies and you can party and dance your dancehall music, every little thing is going to be all right. While the nation continues to mourn the loss of many of its citizens, right? That is not mind-boggling to most Jamaicans, because if it were at all concerning, right? If it were anything of great consternation, I think that we would have risen up and we would have demanded responses from our government because after all, we sent them there. One of the mandates was to be able to maintain law and order, which means that we are not going to have these, you know, um, what should I say, called these thugs, right? These thugs that are lurking and around the island and are, creating mayhem in our society. One of the things I thought about this morning before I actually came online was the fact that in Jamaica, people have not yet developed a sense of community. What we have are houses, right? We tend to like to build big houses, and we do not put our houses or build our home or houses, and I won't even call them homes sometimes, or houses in communities. We have to now develop a sense of community. So we must think about home. After the house, then comes the home, and then after the home comes the community. And we have to develop that sense of strong communities, which we have not developed for the most part, right? Because we are all about acquiring wealth for ourselves, and we are not thinking about our neighbors. As a result of that, we see a lot of jealousy and covetousness in Jamaica reigning supreme because people think that they have been left behind, right? I'm not now here suggesting that we should in any way justify, right, and begin to excuse reasons for which people create mayhem and murder. But we've got to understand that we live in a society that is largely, for the most part, unjust, unfair. And we've got now to think about it, how we begin to distribute, not necessarily equally, but fairly, the resources of the nation. We understand that equality is never going to be, but our citizens need to have a certain lifestyle, right? We can't allow our citizens to be, some people to be living very well, and the majority of people live beneath the poverty line. We cannot continue. That sort of society is really a society that is on the periphery, right? A society that is unraveling. And we've got to understand that. Something that we have to really come to grips with. And I'm not sure why we have not yet come to grips with that society. The former Prime Minister of Jamaica, Michael Manley, did write a book on that we're on the periphery. And we need to get our acts together. So this was another news story of another violent act, right? Another violent crime in Jamaica. And it seems to me that the newspapers, the major newspapers on the island, the Jamaica Gleaner and Jamaica Observer, are not contextualizing crime. They're not putting crime before the forelight every day, before the people, and trying to find some form of solution. Because it has been an ongoing occurrence in Jamaica. It's almost like the air that Jamaicans breathe. They breathe crime and violence on a daily basis. How good can that be for their health, for their physical health, for their psychological health, for their mental health, for their emotional health? How well can that be? And then we talk about violence that we're now seeing in the schools. And we think that the principals are the ones who should be burdened with correcting that violence. If the society on the whole is violent, then violence is going to pervade everywhere, right? It's going to be in the church, it's going to be in the schools. Well, hopefully it's not in the church, but we assume that it's going to be there. It shouldn't be there, right? But the society is so plagued by it's a plague that it seems to me just like another virus. It pervades every nook and cranny of that society, right? The land of Marcus Garvey, right? That is what we're seeing there, and there is no credible and pragmatic crime solution or crime strategy or plan that we have. The government doesn't have it. The government seems to be bereft of any idea of how it is going to tackle crime. But if the truth be told, and I'm not afraid of speaking the truth, because the truth is the truth, and the truth is the only way in which we will be liberated. And I can say to you that many of us are not truly liberated because we do not like to confront the truth. We like to live in this delusional world thinking that our leaders, dressed in their ties and their jackets, are wonderful, refined people because they went to the Harvards and the Princetons and the University of the West Indies, right? So it means, therefore, that they are refined and cultured people. And not to mention our corporate elites, right? That they are there trying to develop markets in which Jamaicans can participate and earn a living. But to a large extent, that is not true, right? And some of the highest or some of the most respectable persons are persons who are also involved in criminal activities. And we don't have to go far than just the SSL. What happened at the SSL recently in Jamaica, right? And to see the theft of hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars from people's accounts. We also can talk about, we also can reference the banks. Bank of Nova Scotia, well, that to some degree is not as frequent as the National Commercial Bank, right? The National Commercial Bank, where people are constantly complaining about their funds being hacked into and their funds being siphoned from their bank accounts without any trace of who did it, without any trace of who is responsible for the stealing, the theft of people's hard-earned money. In an impoverished society, this is what is happening. The government is not able to give the people jobs or to create jobs so that people can sustain themselves. And when they find jobs online or any other ways of finding a job, right? You find that the government does not create the policies because the government has to create policies to protect the people from these criminal elements. And all they do is just offer wonderful condolences on behalf of the Jamaican government and the people, on behalf of the government and the people of Jamaica, right? We express our condolences. But that is not going to help the family of Cunningham, right? These very cheap words that you have just uttered, that you have just pronounced, Andrew Holness, right, will not help the family because this is a great loss. And you have stated it very well that this man was an entrepreneur and he was in something like farming, which is very, very pivotal to the existence of any society, particularly Jamaica. Right? But we do not see anything. Yeah, you just express some light words and and afterwards, life goes on. Life goes on and nothing will become of that murder, right? Often nobody's charged because as far as Prime Minister Andrew Holness is concerned, Cunningham is just an ordinary Jamaican. If it were somebody from the upper class, of course, they would seek to bring some sort of justice to the family. But he, just another Black Jamaican who has passed. What's the big deal? Right? This is how our government is operating. This is how our government is thinking. And if they weren't thinking like that, they would definitely craft a plan, a crime plan that is workable. And Martin Henry, has spoken about crime and violence in many of his articles when he was alive. But the government would not listen. And that government is still in power, right? The government under Andrew Holness's leadership is still in power. And, Martin Henry has always been saying his point is that we have to create law and order. We have to create law and order. We cannot just have a lawless society where everything goes, right? From the bus stop, right, to the shopping malls, law and order must be maintained. And too often what we see in Jamaica is lawlessness. So crime actually survives and thrives, not only survives, but it thrives in a lawless society. So if we begin to clean up physically and also metaphorically our society, we are going to find that crime and violence will be reduced significantly. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's almost like we don't have a government. It seems to me that Jamaica does not have a sitting government when you can have the lives of citizens in a small country, in a small space like Jamaica, being snuffed out in the manner in which we see it happen on a daily basis in Jamaica. And people find it to be ordinary. And they will say to you, when I speak on crime, oh, wow, it's happening in Trinidad or it's happening in Bahamas, right? And this has been an ongoing problem in Jamaica for years. Well, some crime and violence, I must say, is happening in Trinidad also. Trinidad has morphed into a murderous country also. But I must say that it was never going, well, this problem has not been going on for the length of time in which it has been going on in Jamaica. To me, Jamaica has set the trend for murders in the Caribbean. Jamaica has set the trend for murders in the Caribbean. And everybody seems to be following this. And not to mention our music that is murderous. right? Decadent, a socially decadent form of music that we have created. And we call it free expression, the right to free speech. But the right to free speech has responsibilities and also has consequences, right? And we cannot continue to threaten our society, to threaten the members rather of the society, and think that it is not going to have consequences for the future or in the future. And that is what we're doing. That is clearly what we are doing in that country, right? We've got to come together. We've got to find a way to solve the problem that of crime and violence that bedevils us, right? We cannot continue like this. And every day we have the reports. Look at what what's his name? Martin Henry. Let us look at the article that Martin Henry wrote. I think I'm on the wrong article because I think he had an article 72 hours to solve the problem of crime and violence, which he did write. But he wrote an article here, and it's titled, let me go up here. Mobilize, no, this is not his article, I'm sorry. Um, uh, it's called Priority Number One, Fighting Crime, right? Let us see what date the article was written. And this was 2016. So when the prime minister just came in, right? So let's just look at when the prime minister just come in. I think the prime minister won the election in March or April of 2016. This is Andrew Holness, and Martin Henry was writing about the problem of crime and violence. Here is what Martin is saying. I have a problem with the voluntarism behind the contributions of the ministries. This should not be a matter of security holding the hand. The budget process should securely deliver to security and justice as a top priority of government, the beefed up resources they desperately need. But a fundamental flaw in the traditional budget process is once again exposed for fixing. The budget is driven not by policy, but by the competing claims of ministers, and I agree with him, departments and agencies of government. Now, much can be done to build more transparency and accountability with public scrutiny into the operations of the police force. Transparency and accountability are the greatest weapons against corruption, and that is what we don't want our government to be corrupt. The fewer than 50 men and women in the top leadership of the force, the commissioner, the deputy and assistant commissioners, the parish divisional commanders, and the commanders of the special units should be rigidly held to task in the operations and performance of the JCF. Done, right? That should be a foregone conclusion. That's how serious organizations are held to account, through focusing on top leadership, not the rank and file, right? And so much we talk about what the police are doing and not doing. We focus on them and we do not look at the leadership of the Jamaica Defense Force, right? Now, look at what he's saying here, because every time they have the Patterson report, they have now the Orville Taylor-led committee. This is something the Orville Taylor-led Committee for National Security, which has been established by the minister, should focus on. The committee has been set up to guide policy and to set standards and evaluation benchmarks, as well as to give general guidance on national security. One of the key tasks of the committee is to set a timetable for implementation of all recommendations that have been made over the last 20 years. So there are recommendations to solving crime and violence in Jamaica, but we have a problem with implementation. We like to set up committees, right? And people earn their salaries and then their names are placed on the, as Orville Taylor's name is placed, he's the Orville Taylor's led committee. And nothing becomes of it, right? Nothing becomes of these committees, and people are paid, I am sure. Banking on the minister's commitment rather, to redirect massive budgetary resources to fight crime, the police high command should make clear in public what the resource needs and gaps are that the force faces in the discharge of its duties, right? The minister should insist that this shopping list be accompanied by the clearest concrete operational plans down to divisional level for reducing crime levels, enforcing law and order, and improving public safety. And command careers should be put on the line against command ops plan, right? We need to secure our borders, as Martin's suggesting, from gun running and drug trafficking with more patrol boats. Our officers in uniform need more equipment and facilities, and we absolutely need more of these officers, perhaps twice as many. I think so. We need more capability for intelligence-driven policing and far more forensics capacity. We need more courtrooms and more judges and judicial staff. These are practical things that we need, and we often are not getting them, yet we think that we are going to magically solve crime and violence on the island. Well, listen to what he's recommending. The security forces, by simply being there, need to take back the towns and the streets of Jamaica, right? They need to take back the towns and the streets of Jamaica, the public spaces which the public authority controls. There is a psychology, which is right, to crime and lawlessness that is very well known. People will push the limits and do what they can get away with without being apprehended. So if you do not have laws created and laws that have teeth, then people will do as they please. They will not obey the rules, right? Because as much as we like, people tend, we have this slave-like mentality that if the sticks are not over our heads, we tend not to obey, right? We tend not to obey. Some stick has to be placed over our heads at the job. If the boss is not strict with you, many of you, right, you will not do the work. You will not do the work. You will not perform at your best, at fullest capacity, because there's no one there to really discipline you, right? If you do not do the work in the best way. Very few people have the sense of commitment to a task, whether or not there's a stick over their heads. Very few, right? In all societies. I'm not talking only in Jamaica. And that's why we have to create law and order, because there is, as Martin is suggesting here, a psychology to crime when they see lots of policemen, right, who are ready to hit them if they need to be hit, right? Because some of these criminals need to be hit and they need to be dealt with roughly because they are ruffians, they're ruffians, right? And we need to deal with them. But people also, to an overwhelming degree, yield to visible and serious authority. Let me repeat that, he's right. But people also to an overwhelming, which means that it's most of us, as I have previously suggested, right? But people also, to an overwhelming degree, yield to visible and serious authority. And people modify their behavior from observing exemplary cases of punishment, right? So when they see that others are being punished, they themselves would fall in line. But in Jamaica, it's a country in which anything goes. Nobody cares because that means it's freedom. And that is the Wild West, right? We're living on or in the Wild West. Our security forces, with full respect for human rights, must move to take control of the town centers and commercial hubs and transport centers of our major townships by sheer presence. And if that's what's happening, probably we could have we would have fewer students die because a lot of the fights and disorder, the mayhem that we see among our students in Jamaica, that's where it tends to be. The transport center or centers tend to be the hub of violence, right? And social mayhem among our students. They must control with presence the town urban crime hotspots. They must take out of circulation gang leaders on every minor but stickable offenses, right? They must police the softer quality of life laws as well, which will send a massive national signal of seriousness of intent in restoring law and public order. We will need roaming rapid response backup units. Yes, you're going to have that. Have to have some roaming going on and people who will back up quickly, right? As you call them, they're there on the spot to deal with whatever problem is happening. That is not what is happening in Jamaica at present, right? He talks about the justice system, also the creaking justice system as both of the Minister of National Security and the Minister of Justice clearly understand, cannot handle all of this new pressure aggressive policing would thrust upon it, which is one reason that serious policing isn't seriously attempted. While we await a new prison, part British, well, we don't have to talk about that. The courts will have to do a lot more non-custodial sentencing. And while not the main purpose, more fines will contribute to desperately needed public revenue. Yes, find them. Find the people who are practicing social disorder and creating mayhem in our towns, right? And our communities. We should freeze all old cases in the system beyond a certain cutoff date and in certain categories to be properly determined and free up court time for the fresh new cases coming in from the Safer Jamaica operation. I agree 100% with him on that. For maximum psychological impact, not to mention maximum justice, the doctrine of habeas corpus should be strongly reinvigorated. Accused persons should be taken before a magistrate forthwith and their cases disposed of in the shortest possible time, fully within the law, right? We must make 119 work better. Oh, it's 119, sorry. Not 119, but 119, which is the number that they call if you have a, problem, if you've experienced a problem. It's an emergency call, right? The emergency call number. So we must make 119 work better. And we could get some of our students, right, to work, pay them pay them a stipend to work with 119. Why not, right? Do we have criminal justice? Is there a degree in criminal justice in Jamaica? And do we really have a degree? We should have a degree in criminal justice in Jamaica, right? I'm sure the University of the West Indies has one. I think even just colleges should have criminal justice. I think we should have a subject in the high school, right, probably from primary school, because we have a criminal problem in Jamaica. From that time, they should have some course in that subject of criminal justice, right? So we can acquaint our people with the laws and some of the possible solutions. But in the meantime, we can have some of our university students, some of our college students working with 119, right, to answer questions and to move rapidly and to have these roving cars to get to people on time so that we can reduce the number of violent crimes that we have on the island, right? We have too many, right? Too many people are dying and we have to deal with it. With every citizen having 2 cell phones, we must be encouraged to call in law-breaking information, including by the police themselves, with a double assurance of security and quick action. Time for a bold and broad Operation Safer Jamaica as a top priority, backed by the necessary financing, because if this is from 2016, and we still have not been able to put a significant dent in crime and violence as it is happening in Jamaica. Where are we going? Where are we heading if we do not deal with this monster, right? We must deal with it if we want to be a prosperous country. No country is going to be a civil country, a civil society, and a prosperous nation, right? If we do not deal with law and order and the whole matter of crime and violence. And Jamaicans have not been dealing with crime and violence. And it says something about us. It says something about our culture. It seems to me that our culture likes death, right? We like death. And no wonder Professor Orlando Patterson, one of the titles of his book was Slavery and Social Death. And it seems to be that we have not yet arisen out of our social death, right? We need to be resurrected. But somehow it seems to me rather, that our society is still an enslaved one, is still living on the plantation. And that is why we're having all of these social ills, social problems that have arisen out of that plantation model, out of that plantation reality. Government, Prime Minister Andrew Holness, you need to get the people of Jamaica off the plantation, right? Please take them off the plantation. As far as we know, Jamaica was emancipated in 1834. But the social realities did not change much because our economy has not expanded, right? Our economy has not expanded, and we need to expand our economy that our citizens can live decently, and so that some of these major societal ills will be corrected. Thank you so much for joining. I look forward to seeing you in another video. Hope that you will like and you will share and you'll subscribe and you'll leave a thoughtful comment so that our community can grow and we can continue to enlighten our brothers and sisters. Remember now that no man is an island. No man stands alone, right? Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday. Bye.